The Secrets of Disney is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
Ladies and gentlemen.
What's there, Mama?
10,000 years will give you such a crick in the neck.
How do you do?
How do you do what? Show me the smile.
If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all.
Very nice. You can sit by me.
Everything's so wonderful.
Come on, get up. Come on, get up.
Where are we going?
Up to Neverland.
You must kiss me.
Excuse me?
Please, princess.
One kiss.
Unless you beg for more.
Hi, and welcome to the Secrets of Disney podcast. I'm your hostess, Deborah, and joining me is my co-hostess, Sherry.
Hello.
And we are on episode 2 of our new season. We have so much stuff to talk about that we almost couldn't decide what to talk about today. So we're going to start with our little basics. We're going to talk about rides today, Disney rides. And I don't know, Sherry, what are you thinking about as far as your favorite Disney ride?
My favorite Disney ride by far is the Peter Pan ride. I love how Walt came up with the idea. I love the way that it makes you feel like you're really flying in the sky, but then you get close, and then as you ride the ride further, you're like right in the battle with the pirates. The whole concept, engineering, aesthetically, artistically, just is amazing to me.
You know what? You just pointed out something I don't know how many times I've probably ridden that ride. You're talking about in the thousands? Maybe. Maybe
least,
not.
If not more.
If not, well, if you're averaging once a month for 12 months for 20 years, yeah, I'm not going to do the math. But, we're talking about, couple hundred times around, and you pointed something out to me that I didn't connect the dots until just now when you were talking about it, which is you start, over this little forced perspective of above, and then all of a sudden you're in the action. I never noticed how, like, all of a sudden you go from being just a heavenly spectator,
right.
Spectator, and then all of a sudden you're in the battle. You're,
yes.
By the gangplank, watching Wendy, being forced into.
Yeah.
And it never occurred to me that's what happened in that ride.
Learn something new every day.
Totally different perspective. Next time I go on that ride, I'll have to see where the real switch happens. Like, can you tell me exactly where that switch or is it a gradual switch? And that's why I didn't notice it.
It's sort of gradual. So you start off in their, the Darlings playroom, right? So that's like, an actual size, I suppose. And then as you fly out their window, the ground beneath you shrinks until you then are flying above London. And then you fly above London, and then Peter and Wendy, the Darling kids, are flying around the moon. So you see their silhouettes on the moon. And as you pass that, then you come to Neverland and you start getting bigger again.
Oh,
and then as you're flying over Neverland, it's all about the same perspective, until it's time to battle with Captain Hook. So Captain Hook and Shmi fire at you, and then the scene gets bigger again. And then you get right into the battle.
Wow. And then you see the last scene is actually one of my favorites. I hate to say it, is the crocodile, and you see Hook, and he's, kind of battling with the crocodile. He's in the crocodile's mouth.
His mouth, right. Oh, no, I love that scene, too. I'm coming, Captain. I'm coming. That's got to be one of my favorite lines in the whole movie.
And I got to say, that's one of my favorite villains of Disney is the crocodile, even though I don't know if you'd call it a villain.
He's an innocent bystander, I think. He's just hungry. He's a friendly, hungry crocodile,
Yeah, Hook gave him a handout, and he wants to, taste a little more of that.
Right, exactly. Who can fault him?
Right. But there's
Yes.
something interesting about that ride that's different from a lot of the other Disney rides, which is that the track is above you. So the ride track, it's like a ski lift in a sense, in that the ride track is you're following it on the ceiling as opposed to on the ground with all of the other Disney rides. I can't think of
Yes.
another Disney ride where you're up in the ceiling. Soaring, but that's a different concept because it's almost like a crane
lift.
effect.
Yes.
Yeah. But I can't think of another one where you're on a kind of like a ski lift almost.
No, I have
Except,
to
yeah.
agree with you.
So it's a very unique ride. It's a very short
Yes.
ride.
It is very
And,
short, and the line is forever long.
Yes. In fact, that's one of those when we start talking about fast passes, we'll have to talk about that one for sure, as you must get a fast pass for that.
For Peter Pan, yes.
Peter Pan's flight. Now, the funny thing about this, and this was 20 years ago when I was very, very young. I was almost a baby. They had a list of like top 10 rides for romance, for stealing a kiss. And that's number 1.
Really?
Yes, it is.
I did not know that. That's funny.
Isn't that funny? It's because it's a dark ride, and not only is it, dark, but it has that nice black light effect. So everything, if you're wearing anything white, it just glows, and it's just, a little, I guess, a little more romance.
Okay, so that just shows how oblivious I am, because I'm in there looking at the engineering, the art. Now, maybe my husband and I have ridden that ride many, many times, and he may or may not have tried to kiss me, and I was completely oblivious.
Did he try to hold your hand?
I always thought he was always trying to hold on to me because I was always looking over the edge of the ship, and he was just trying to prevent me from falling off. Maybe he was holding on to my hand, because he was trying to be romantic. I don't know. I should ask him.
Maybe, but your husband's probably a little more practical, and he was like, "Oh man, she's gonna fall off on this ride."
Right? But I have never stopped the ride from leaning over too far. So, it's all good. It's all good.
I tell you what, though, unfortunately, if that's what's going to happen when you and I ride it coming up in a couple months, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to catch you if you fall.
That's fine. That's fine. In fact, I am pretty sure if I fall out of the ride, you're going to whip out your camera and take pictures of me.
Yes, I am. I'm going to laugh.
Like, I have to commemorate this moment of Sherry's idiocy.
Oh, it's going to be glorious if you do that. It'll just be a story that. Have you ever noticed this about life in general? And this is about vacations in general, or going somewhere new in general. Is that the better stories are when everything goes wrong? Like, you have so much better stories when things are messed up.
Yes. But it's after you get over the fact that it was so messed up.
That you almost died. Yeah. It's like that one time
you
I
mean
almost
like
died.
When you get lost in Alaska?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Can you tell that story? And this is just a cautionary tale. If you're on a Disney cruise or any cruise at all.
Cruise, that's all. Don't stray from where they tell you to go. So my husband decided he was going to go for a jog when we went on an Alaskan cruise. We were at port. He decided he was going for a jog. That's just how he is. It allows him to relax. And he doesn't like being cooped up. And he got himself lost. And he ran so far out of town that when he called 911, luckily we were still in the United States, he got patched to the police department in the town next door.
Oh, no.
He basically had to spend the night there. The boat left, the ship left. He had to fly from that little town to, I think, Juneau, Alaska, and then from Juneau, Alaska, catch another flight to Anchorage, which is where we were ultimately docking. And so that was a pretty penny, a lot of stress. He missed all of the ice, like glaciers and stuff.
Oh no.
I think I was stuck on the ship with my kids for 3 days, and he was on land watching U.S. soccer. Actually, the World Cup was on, so he was like having a jolly time watching World Cup soccer, and I was stuck on a ship with 2 kids, 2 very young kids. So anyway, the moral of the story is, do not stray from where they tell you to go. Make sure you keep track of time if you are on a cruise, because the ship will not wait for you. They will not. They cannot. Understandably so. And it'll cost you a pretty penny to get back where you need to. When he called me, so the cruise actually took pity on me and they allowed me to call him every day. And the first day he's like, well, you know, I have the option of the Hilton or a hostel. And I was like, what do you think a good decision is going to be? So he stayed in the hostel for the next 2 or 3 nights. So make sure to get back on that ship. Keep track of time. Anyway, let's get back to Disney.
So I didn't talk about my favorite ride. Oh, wait,
Yes,
before
what
I
is
do
your favorite
that,
ride? Uh-huh.
before we get into mine, I wanted to talk about where Peter Pan's flight is. It's in the Magic Kingdom, if you're not familiar with that. And it is in Fantasyland. And it is one of the very first attractions, I would say, when the park opened in the 1970s. It's that old.
Yes. I did read an article, though, that they did renovate it, I believe, in the 80s. They updated it. The ride itself. The queue line, they more recently upgraded. But the ride itself, they added more parts to it in about I think it was the 1980s.
Oh, yeah. That would make sense. Well, and then they just recently redid the queue line like 2 years ago and extended it, and then added the Darling's bedroom as part of the queue line. And it's really adorable because they have like Tinkerbell shadows, and it's adorable.
Yes, it's amazing. The light show that they have in there is interactive with you. So when you're standing by the wall, you can ring the bells that are projected onto the wall, which is just amazing. Amazing, amazing technology.
All right. Well, you know, speaking of, not necessarily amazing technology, we're going to go with, I was thinking about 2 of my favorites, but we'll go with the Magic Kingdom one. And then I'll say my second favorite is Tower of Terror, but we'll get to that in a little bit, maybe. So my favorite ride is actually still in the Magic Kingdom, and it is Big Thunder Mountain. And
why do you like Big Thunder?
Because you can get a really great ride in there. Now, I like the theming of the ride, and I kind of like the queue spiel that goes with it. It's like this, howdy partners, you know, this here is the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Yes.
And I when I was 20, again, you know, just yesterday when I was 20, I used to joke with one of our mutual friends that I wanted that sign for my car. Like, this is the wildest ride in the wilderness.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I just like it feels like a good old fashioned wooden coaster. Mm-hmm. Because it doesn't go upside down. It's not that fast. It doesn't go fast. So it doesn't do loop-de-loops, but it gives you a nice lift out of the seat occasionally, especially if you're sitting in the back, and it gives you a nice centrifuge effect of having to press against your, like you're going to fall out. And it's just a nice, fast moving, fast paced ride that gives you enough thrills, but it doesn't make you sick.
Doesn't give you an aneurysm. Right.
It doesn't give you an aneurysm. And everybody can ride it. I think that it does have a height requirement, but it's pretty, you can set little kids on there. The height requirement's probably 40 inches. So like 5 and 6 year olds. Yes. But there's a secret to this ride, which is, if you want a fast ride, you ask to be seated near the back. And if you want not so fast a ride, you see it in the front. You ask to be seated in the front because that is slow. In fact, if I get up to the front of the line and they're like, "Oh, you get row 2," and I'm like, "No, I'll wait. I want the back of the line, and I will wait 5." Oh, I was going to say I'll wait 5 minutes. Like even if 4 cars have to go before I get the back seat, I will ask for it.
Nice. It always cracks me up when people ask to sit in the front. I think they think that because the engine's right there, or not the engine, but the fake engine.
Locomotive.
Yeah. It's the best place to be. I mean, you don't even get yourself in a picture in that thing.
Oh, that's right, because it's blocking your head.
Right. And like in the Seven Dwarfs Mine Ride, there's the automatic cameras, right, that Disney has set up in certain places that take your picture in the carts. But Big Thunder doesn't have that. So it always cracks me up when people are like, "Oh, I want to sit in the front. That's the best place to be." Well, I guess if you want to go slow, that is.
I would recommend if you're planning to ride that ride like more than once in a day or in a trip, that you try. If you haven't tried the front, try it, because it's a different weird experience. Because the car is so long. There's so many rows of people that you'll go up over the first big hill and you're kind of like dangling there for like a couple seconds, and you're just dangling there, like waiting for the rest of the car to catch up with you so you can start a downhill momentum. And it's a weird feeling. It's kind of irritating if you're like, come on. But, it's worth it at least once to try it.
Yeah.
And I also, when fireworks are going, and I'm very much not one for standing still in one place. So when fireworks are going and I don't want to stand and watch them, I will head for Big Thunder Mountain because they have the best view of the fireworks while you're on the ride. It's kind of a magical experience.
Oh, that's neat. I'm sure I've done that, but I don't know that I've noticed. The last trip that I went on, Bren and I came out of Small World and the fireworks were going off. So we were in Fantasyland. And so it actually felt like we were within the fireworks because there were some going off in front of us closer to the castle. I'm assuming they get shot off kind of by the moat area, but then there were a lot that were getting shot off behind Fantasyland. Right. And so we were seeing fireworks from both sides. And because of the slight winds, some of them were kind of getting pushed right over us. So that was a neat experience too. I've never done that before. And in fact, I remember they used to block off Fantasyland. Yeah. I remember that they used to not let people in that area for a while because of the fireworks.
I think they were using bigger fireworks with the old show over the castle.
Yeah.
And now they block off the castle area still.
Right.
Because, you don't want to get shot with a firework. But
why not?
I know.
Won't that
it'd be so
a
much
magical
fun.
experience to catch on fire?
It's happened. But anyway, and then they shoot off all the big fireworks, like the big sky boomers and the little hearts and the frowny faces and the happy faces. They shoot them off in a fireworks bunker on the outside of the park, and the back where we would call that Ring Road is what they call it, but it's where the cast members park and close to the swampy area where nobody goes because of the safety issues. And,
until the firework lands on your car and boom.
Bang.
Just kidding. Huh?
I have had, when I worked at studios, when I was doing security at studios, their fireworks bunker is in the back of the park too, but it's really close to the highway. And one day it was graveyard shift, and I was driving around in my little automobile, and I have to check the perimeter, and I saw smoke, and one of the fireworks from studios had caught the grass on fire just outside of Disney Hollywood Studios. And, so it was just a quick, call the fire department and have them spritz that a little bit. But it does happen because the wind could carry it anywhere, and
Right, right.
live shells, and yeah,
That's funny.
But my second favorite is one of Sherry's. I'm sure she's going to say it, or one of her least favorites.
Let's just say it now. Boo!
So we're going to talk about before. Well, I guess we can always circle back. We're going to talk about our home. I don't know if you feel like Studios is your home, but Studios always feels like my home.
Yeah,
But-
Studios is my home.
Yeah, and because both Sherry and I worked there, so we both feel like Studios is our home. And so we're going to talk about something that's relatively new as far as a ride, because, well, it's about actually 25 years old this year.
Not so new.
Not so new. I can't believe that. It opened in 1994, and we're talking about the Tower of Terror.
Boo!
Boo, which is my second favorite ride. And Sherry, I've been on it with Sherry the very first and probably the very last time she ever rode it.
I am more than happy to sit on Sunset eating my ice cream while you go and ride Tower of Terror. How's that sound?
Okay, that sounds good. Because you know what? I didn't even think about that, is that fast passes for when you and I go together in September, I guess Tower will have to be a separate thing that I do. Which is fine.
You can probably get, instead of using a fast pass for that, because you'll be by yourself, ride the single rider line.
That's true. You're right. And
it'll be faster.
I like kind of whipping in and out of there, and it's a great ride. Now, I
disagree.
I actually I just did a podcast class at the University of Nebraska, and the broadcasting instructor's like, here, make a podcast about something, and gave us parameters, and it could be about anything we wanted it to be. So I did a very solo, very scripted, like 20-minute podcast about the details of Tower of Terror. And it's weird because I'm so used to talking to people on the other end of the microphone. I was just like, who am I talking to? I don't know. And it's so scripted, and I'm not used to reading from a script. I'm used to just saying whatever comes to me. Yeah, talking, having a conversation. And, there's some pretty cool things about Tower if you want to look at it from an aesthetic effect and why they built it the thing that it is. And now Tower of Terror is the second tallest ride on property. And do you want to guess which one's the tallest?
Thunder Mountain, Splash Mountain.
No.
Space Mountain.
It is a mountain.
Oh, Everest.
Yes, by a half a foot.
Oh, really?
Now, did you know why that is? Why? Because Tower of Terror is 199 feet tall, and Everest is 199.5 feet tall.
Why they made Everest a half foot taller?
And why is it that height? I'm sure there's people screaming like, I know.
Oh, because of is it because of air
yes
rules?
FFA,
airplanes.
FFA.
Yeah, airplanes.
Wrong organization, not the farmers. Federal Aviation.
Yes.
I said FFA, not FAA. Sorry. Yes. The airline, anything over 200 feet tall needs to have a beacon on top of it. And Disney's like, oh no, we can't do that. That would ruin the theming. So that's, they stretch it to that point and no more.
That makes sense.
But Disney, I thought, was like a no-fly zone for the most part. Like you're not allowed to.
All airspace is airspace. It's public.
I thought Disney had a special agreement to try not to have people fly within 1,000 feet
of the property.
Of the property,
maybe. I mean, we never do see airplanes flying over, right? Or helicopters,
right?
Or anything.
And if they are, they're flying pretty high in the sky. They're not flying low. You won't see low flying. Even so this is we're way off topic here. But just a short caveat. Speaking of airplanes. So I used to work in Animal Kingdom about 10 years ago, and every morning there was a sky rider for Jesus out there. So he would go out there around 3 or 4 in the afternoon, or maybe sometimes 10. It depended on the day. And he would write Jesus loves you, or heart, or forgive, or something to that, or a cross or something to that effect. But he was not directly over Animal Kingdom. He had to be to the south of Animal Kingdom, but close enough to the theme parks that you could see it from pretty much actually all the theme parks. You can see the sky writing, but it was just one of those things. It wasn't directly over the theme parks.
Interesting.
If you ever see a skywriter, they do happen. And that went on for years, like your daily message from Jesus, apparently. And
maybe he reached some people.
Well, some people's ministries are, and missions are like, hey, I'm going to go, get all these tourists to believe in Jesus. And that was his ministry. That was his calling.
So let's jump back to the Tower of Terror.
Yes.
Do you know why I don't like the Tower of Terror?
No, go ahead and tell me why you don't like it.
Well, I was just curious, because all these years I don't go on the Tower of Terror. I scream my head off. I don't like. Well, one of the biggest reasons is I don't like all that ghost stuff.
Really?
Yeah. So all that Twilight stuff kind of wigs me out a little bit, and so I don't like going through, and that's the whole beginning of the ride. And so it just kind of wigs me out. And I'm like, I don't like ghosts. I don't like, that weird phenomenon stuff of things. I don't know. And so that is one of the main reasons I don't like that ride.
That's interesting on 2 points, 2 levels here. One, I thought it was always the drop. So quick premise of the ride is that you get in a elevator shaft or an elevator car that's a service elevator, because the original elevators were struck by lightning, and that's how the passengers evaporated and disappeared. And so you ride up this elevator shaft and you see the ghosts and you see what happens that night. And then you go across the 5th dimension, because it's the Twilight Zone. So you go across the 5th dimension and into a bigger elevator shaft, and that's the drop shaft. So then they drop you, free fall. Well, it's not free fall because it's a controlled fall, but then they shoot you back up to the top and you fall again. And, it varies on whether you drop or shoot up to the top, or, fall all the way down and then back up again. It's kind of varies, depending on the program. And then you go down and finally you're let off the ride. And I always thought it was because you hated the drop. The feeling of the, your stomach in your throat free fall.
That is part of it. Because I'm also scared of heights.
Yeah.
So the combination of all of that, I know when you're in the shaft, really it's closed, right? They open it when you get to the top so you can see your high, and then they drop you. But when they're dropping you, if I recall correctly, you don't actually see anything outside.
Right.
But
they open the window to you see all of sunset, and then they drop you.
Right.
But then you don't normally get up to the very top again so you can look out again. You just basically are in pitch black. Right.
Well, I have a fear of heights and falling.
It's very evolutionary.
I know. I have to look down from a high height. I have genuine fear. And so this ride, with the culmination of both of those things, it just does not bring me pleasure. Looking at Peter Pan, Little London, that brings me joy. But not Tower of Terror.
But what about Haunted Mansion? Since you don't like the spook thing,
Haunted Mansion
factor.
is on the lower end of my list to do. I do enjoy Haunted more than Tower, because I find that the science behind it enthralls me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know I sound really dorky, but so you go into that room where that witch's head is in the globe, right? And then you hear the sounds, and there's all those instruments and stuff hanging from the ceiling and moving around. Well, as a kid, you're looking at it going, wow, how do they do that? You know? And how do they make the sounds go from here to there? And oh my gosh. And it's that stuff that I appreciate in the Haunted Mansion. Like the room with the ghosts, the dining room.
Yeah.
With the ghosts. To me, it's the ghost part kind of wakes me out a little bit, but the idea of what has been done and how, like, there's those two portraits, right?
Right.
And then those ghosts come to life and shoot each other, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do they do that? And how do they make it so that these ghosts are dancing on the ballroom or the one blowing out the candles? Like, all of that engineering, just it's exciting for me. It's exciting, huh?
Do you know what that's called? I actually know this. Do you know what that's called?
You know, I should, because my son built one.
It's called Pepper's Ghost. That's the trick. It's called Pepper's Ghost Trick. And it's done with mirrors.
Okay.
And the mirrors
I'm gonna have to look at my son's thing. He built one at home.
Yeah, the mirrors are slanted.
Yes.
And the reflection in the mirrors causes it to have this ghostly appearance.
Yes. It's when they turn the lights on.
Right.
Behind.
Right,
yes.
right.
Yes.
Because Tower of Terror has the same exact trick. That when you go, and I've, since I was in security, and I can talk about this kind of things because I am no longer in security, but, I used to go into Tower of Terror on graveyard shift and walk through the entire ride, and it's creepy with the lights on.
See? But it's a horrible ride.
But, you get to see the mirrors in the room that the ghosts appear close up, and it's really a tiny room.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like 5 foot tall. Like I'm not that tall, and I remember being like, "Ooh, I'll hit my head on the door frame here." So that's something to a little Disney Tower and Haunted Mansion. And Haunted Mansion and Tower have a lot of similarities too. Like,
yes,
it's the only 2 rides at Walt Disney World where the cast members are expected to be kind of morose and not smile at you and kind of, stay in that character, that very deadly serious character.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I remember one time I went on Haunted, and I can't remember who I was with, but we went into that first room, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I put on this serious, like, gloomy, threatening face. And the cast member who basically has to do that for their shift, he and I basically kind of had a slight, like, stare down of, like, who's the more, like, evil, gloomy person, right?
Oh,
and then
funny.
he did his little spiel and whatever. And when I got in my car, I don't know where he had gone, or, if he had happened to change position shift, how they rotate.
Yeah.
Well, he totally freaked me out because I was sitting in my car and I assumed that he had, I'd left him behind to do the next group. And he came up and just went, boo! Like, ah! As my cart started going into the Haunted Mansion area with the picture frames and stuff. And I screamed so loud, and then I just started cracking up because that was just great. Like, that was just great. Great cast member interaction.
I got a cute, since we're talking about Haunted Mansion, I got a cute Haunted Mansion story. And this actually happened, I think, last year. So I go to the parks a lot by myself because, well, I'm a solo kind of person. And so I go on Haunted Mansion every time I go to Magic Kingdom. It's one of my favorite attractions. Not my favorite attraction, but I definitely like the ride. And so when you get into the building, they tell you to go into like an elevator and, and drag your corpses into the dead center of the room. And that's where the room stretches. And in California, the room is actually a legit elevator where the ride is down below street level. But in Florida, the room just stretches. And so, you see all these rooms stretching and, these little portraits stretching and, reveals the plot line of these, how they died or whatever. And then there's this part where it's like, if you look around, there's no doors and no windows, which, leaves you this perplexing question to find a way out. And then he goes, well, there's always my way. And then the lights go out and you hear this, ah! And, and a thump, and you see basically, bodies hanging above you. And this little girl, I felt this little hand just grab me and hold on tight. And so I didn't move because I'm like, this poor little hand grabbed my hand. And so the lights came back on and I looked down at her and she looks up at me and she's like slow motion backs away from me.
You're not the hand I meant to grab.
I turned to her parents. I'm like, any hand in a storm, any mom will do.
Yeah. That's so funny.
It was cute. It was adorable.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, again. So next time I'll tell you about how much I hate Tomorrowland Speedway. But anyway.
Okay. No, that's the next one. Our least favorite rides. Although I already covered mine today.
Yeah. So next time we will do why I hate Tomorrowland Speedway. Anyway, until next time, thanks for joining us.
Bye.
And bye.